Anil Prasad is the founder and editor of Innerviews, the Internet's first online music magazine, initially launched in 1994. Prasad's writing has appeared in Guitar Player, Bass Player, Frets, Jazz Times, Relix, All About Jazz, and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. In addition, Innerviews content is used as part of the UCLA School of Music's course curriculum. He has conducted interviews with more than 450 musicians since 1992. He has contributed liner notes, essays, video interviews, and release consulting to projects for record labels including Abstract Logics, Blue Note, Favored Nations, Grass Tops, Lazy Bones Recordings, Magna Carta, Panegyric, and 7D Media, as well as artists such as Pierre Bensoussan, The Crimson Project, Pete Levin, Tony Levin, Pat Mastelotto, John McLaughlin, Marco Miniman, Marcus Reuter, Jordan Rudess, Julie Slick, Sonar, Tanya Taggart, David Torn, Us3, Van Anvo, Alan White, Stephen Wilson, and G.A.S. Prasad is the author of the book Innerviews, Music Without Borders. The ebook edition achieved a #1 placement on iTunes Arts and Entertainment and Music charts. The book features interviews with 24 musicians, including Bjork, Stanley Clarke, Ani DeFranco, Bela Fleck, Bill Laswell, John McLaughlin, Public Enemy, David Sylvian, and Tangerine Dream. Prasad's work has been excerpted in more than 30 music-related books, including In a Silent Way, A Portrait of Joe Zawinul by Brian Glasser, In the Court of King Crimson by Sid Smith, On Some Faraway Beach, The Life and Times of Brian Eno by David Shepard, and So What, The Life of Miles Davis by John Shaved. Prasad is an outspoken critic of many music industry practices, most notably internet streaming vendor policies. He is the author of a presentation titled The Economic Reality of Streaming for Musicians that examines the history of streaming, the artist royalty rates involved, and their negative impact on artists' livelihoods. Prasad has also criticized recording contracts, in particular copyright and master ownership clauses, and is an advocate of artists retaining the entirety of copyright in their own works. He was voted one of the 6 most influential music journalists of all time by G.A.S. Media. This radio show is sponsored by Not Your Mother's DJs and Events. Women-owned and operated. Not Your Mother's DJs and Events is a great start to any party. This show is listener-funded. If you wish to contribute, our PayPal info is notyourmothersradio@gmail.com. That's notyourmothersradio@gmail.com. We would like to thank you in advance. We really need the help.
So how do you, is there a trick in finding the musicians that aren't, how do you find a lot of guys that aren't listed anywhere? Like, I've been finding a ton of guys on like Facebook. I've gone to like Cherry Red Records to get a handful of guys. Is there an outlet where you can actually go?
No, it's
like a Yellow Pages for musicians.
No, I don't think musicians. Facebook is the new Yellow Pages for musicians. It used to be MySpace,
right?
Back in the much more innocent days of social media, before platforms were throwing global elections for candidates. No, it's really your creativity, as you know, as you build up, you know, this kind of network of people that you engage with. If you've interviewed Bill Laswell and Niels Petter Malvar, just those 2 guys open up a network of hundreds of musicians.
Yeah. Did you know Niels? Did you know Niels? I
know him extremely well. Yes, he's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, great guy, incredible. Yeah. He's a lot of very down to earth. What a great musician! What a great guy he is.
I would go as far as to say one of the most important living musicians on this earth at the moment.
I think so too. Also, I've been talking to Raul. How come I just forgot his name? Raul. Bornstein. He's a guitarist. He works with.
Oh yeah, right. Yes, very great musician.
Yeah. He works with Bill too. Another great guy who I'm going to be doing a lot of speaking to. I spoke to him a lot. He's going to be doing a live spot with me. I have to work late in the middle of the night because he's in the Nordic region, and to get him up in the morning and me to do a live thing, we have to kind of hook up funny times. So you've kind of hit every major artist out there. You've been able to talk to Tangerine Dream, which is a major coup. That's incredible.
Yeah, getting to know Edgar was a huge. Another example of someone who passed away. Yeah, his death devastated me when that happened.
Yes,
so completely unexpected. I don't know about all the. I mean, I've done a lot of people, but there's so many people I'll never get to.
Yeah. Were you friendly with Edgar?
Sorry. Yeah, we actually stayed in touch over time. Tangerine Dream made it back to the Bay Area just a couple of years before Edgar passed. We got to hang out a bunch. I got to know Bianca, his wife, who's kind of keeping the flame alive.
There's a new Tangerine Dream out there now, right?
Well, the new Tangerine Dream is the previous Tangerine Dream without Edgar.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. It's a phenomenal group of musicians.
Oh, they are.
All of whom have their own incredible careers. It's an interesting one. We're into ghost band. Yeah. As they used to say, when Duke Ellington's band continued without him, or the Mingus bands without him. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, it is.
I know the group Kansas is going down that route at the moment.
Also, Humble Pie.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Ehart from Kansas has said his intent is for that band to outlast all of the existing members and for it to go on without him.
Yeah.
I think Yes seems to be going down that path too. It's an interesting one.
War.
I think the new Tangerine Dream, the so-called quote new unquote Tangerine Dream, are very well intentioned.
Right.
So if that band being on the road means that a 14-year-old finds out about Phaedra in 2022, that can't be a bad thing, right?
No. Because even even bands that were established, like Fleetwood Mac, nobody cares who's in the band anymore. People go to hear their songs.
I'd debate that one personally.
I don't know.
I'm not sure this new Fleetwood Mac. It's an odd one.
Yeah, it is. But people want to hear hear the songs. They want to hear. I mean, me and you are music. I'm
Fleetwood Mac without Lindsey Buckingham is, and then basically a show mostly comprised of Buckingham-based music.
Right.
I mean, you have the same thing with a Yes at the moment.
Yeah, you do. How about Flo and Eddie without Eddie?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
A lot of this has to do with money and has to do with all kinds of politics. But
I think people like to go out there and just hear the songs now. Not me personally.
Yeah, I think when COVID starts to really subside, I know people are claiming it has subsided.
I don't think so.
Anyone with half an active brain cell knows that's not true, but it's coming.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We will have lost 1 to 2 years of touring time.
Right.
And that doesn't matter a whole lot for the younger people, but for the older bands that were already comprised of people in their late 60s, early 70s, I think 2022 to 23, you're going to kind of see the final mega touring from hell from all of these bands, because it's the last time for most of them, I think.
I do too.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of that.
So what's going to happen? What do you think touring's going to, not touring, but what do you think the audiences are going to be going through now? Do you think it's going to be a hybrid type of an experience? Where
you're talking about the COVID context?
Yeah, after COVID, when people are allowed to go to shows again. I used to work for Live Nation. They were my client. So a company like Live Nation, I mean, this is what they're built upon, touring. Do you think it's going to be hybrid where X amount of people get to see the band live and the rest are going to be seeing it on pay-per-view or something like that?
I think we're going to get right back to where we were.
You do?
But it's going to take a couple of years.
Okay.
the city of San Francisco, near where I live, is now opening up, I believe as of April 15th, they are going to open up live music venues to 30% capacity, which still strikes me as clinically insane and irresponsible, but I'm like the biggest gig goer in the world, and there's no way I would go out there yet.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people chomping at the bit to do it. They're going to open up the Bill Graham Civic Center, which I believe has, capacity of around 8,000 or 9,000 people, and they're going to let it run at 3,000 capacity in this airless box from hell. Right. They're going to split up the venue between people with COVID vaccination cards and people that are unvaccinated. We need to get past all of that crap. I do believe, just history speaks for itself. All global pandemics have historically receded within 2 to 3 years, and this one will recede whether the majority get the vaccine or not eventually. I do believe we'll just get back to where we are. It's just going to take a while.
Okay.
Live Nation, if you read some of the coverage, as soon as this thing hit, they planned for it. They seem to, as much as I used to work for them, but we all agree that it is the company so much of music fandom loves to hate.
Yeah.
But right from the get-go, they seem to have plotted out this 2-year arc of how they get back to full capacity. They really do seem to have been some of the smartest people in the room on COVID. Yeah, I think it will come back with ferocity. Lots of tours are already getting announced for October onwards.
Yeah, they have been.
2022, I already have friends, some of my more famous musician friends, who are actually having trouble booking venues for 22.
Really?
Because you have to book now. Like, the confidence is so high right now that 2022 and 23 are already almost all booked in terms of major venues. So this is a very long-winded way of saying I do believe we'll get back to what we're used to eventually.
Yeah. And how about all the musicians now, all the writers? Everybody's selling off their catalogs.
Well, I think we both know the reason for that.
Streaming.
The monetization of music has been been decimated, right?
Yeah.
We all know streaming. Most of my musician friends make maximum. I mean, some really famous ones, people are still making maximum $100 to $200 a month from streaming.
Yeah, that's right.
And that can represent millions on millions of streams.
Yep.
And so as you know, the super famous musicians are just selling off their catalogs for gigantic bulk sums. There's countless examples at the moment. Even the band Rush did it very quietly. Theirs didn't get much attention. They did that one very quietly in the background, selling off their publishing to a company called Ole Music. Or Ole Music, OLE. I think that's it incorrectly.
I mean, Paul Simon sold his this week.
It's astounding. I mean, I believe they're getting hundreds of millions to close to $1 billion in some cases, right? Some of these catalogs.
I don't know. I thought Dylan got 33 million. I thought he would get billions. I really did.
I'm pretty sure some of these have been into the hundreds of millions. I mean, I think David Bowie was one of the first people to do it. He kind of saw the cratering. I may have these dollar figures.
Yeah, Bowie went corporate, right? He became a corporation, and he sold himself. And I think he got $1 billion at the time for pieces of Bowie.
Smartest guy in the room.
Yeah. And that was decades
ago. Smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, decades ago.
Right to the day Bowie died.
Yeah.
Smartest guy in the room. Stunning.
Yeah, his last video was incredible. The last video.
You wouldn't even know he's gone right now. It's like the guy's music is like in the air. My 13-year-old knows the catalog, and he knows the catalog without my influence.
Oh, really?
It's like he'll be like, "Yeah, Dad, I was listening to this Bowie track." I'm like, "You were?" Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah,
it's really big on TikTok right now. I'm like, yeah.
Well, my grandkids live with me, and my little one is 8 years old, and he's been listening to Fred Schneider's Monster. It
must be your influence, I would presume.
Yeah, I think so. But he, that's another question. New music. there is no really new music. There's nobody to talk to. There's really no influences now that I think are worth chasing. Guys doing new music.
I think I'd have to disagree with you on that, but could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, in the pop world, I don't think
in the pop world.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I think the pop music these days is pretty much disposable. I don't know if anything's
it's always been that way.
Yeah, but I mean,
you have like the St. Vincents that creep into the middle of it.
Yeah.
There's still some really occasional. It's always been the way. To me, it's like pop music has always been disposable.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, there's always only been a handful of people that have kind of stood the test of time. I'm using St. Vincent as an example, who I think she is utterly phenomenal artist in every way. And one of her biggest guitar influences is Adrian Belew.
Right.
I mean, it's like, and she's like taken that. She's a total prog head, that, right?
Yeah.
And she's like filtered all of that into this. She's kind of like St. Vincent is her name is actually Annie Clark. The group is St. Vincent,
right?
But she's kind of she's like what the Talking Heads would be,
in
2021 to me. In fact, she's done a project with David Byrne. I'm just saying there is some hope.
Yeah,
there's
there was an album.
You know who Anna Calvi is?
No.
Another phenomenal female singer-songwriter, guitarist, composer.
Not pop, though.
She's broken through as well. I mean, I'm just saying that you're right in general.
Yeah.
But there's still a few people still break through that are still astonishing. But for the most part, pop music is why it's called popular music, right?
Yeah, but back in the day, the guys that we were talking about, back in the 60s, 70s, even part of the 80s, the people who did pop music were viable. They stuck around. You knew who they were for decades.
But we're still distilling down to kind of a handful. There were more.
There were a lot more.
There's no debating that. You look at like the Fillmore bills, or you look at the Billboard charts.
But even look at Blondie, Talking Heads, B-52s. They were pop.
But you and I may appreciate them, but they were also labeled very disposable at the time. Not so much Talking Heads. I mean, Blondie were considered a throwaway pop band, even though they actually did very important things. And of course, you had people like Robert Fripp working with them, etc. And they stood the test of time.
Right.
The '80s. A lot of people look back at the '80s, with nothing but condemnation.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I think the early '80s were a phenomenal period for music. But I see what you're saying. The star-making machinery of 2021 is also, it's entirely social media and streaming dominated. It's entirely a manipulated machine at levels that we can't even fathom. Mm-hmm. Almost driven by, algorithms more than people.
I kind of feel now that it's more important to have good hashtags than good music.
Well, I know a lot of young people in various circles, not necessarily connected to the worlds of music, and you're right about that. I mean, a lot of them don't know. They only know like a handful of artists' names now, and instead they know playlists,
right?
And they know moods, and they know the packaging and aggregate of songs, and music is, as I say, a lifestyle accoutrement. Something has absolutely been lost. There's no question about that.
Think it's going to come back?
No, I think it will not come back. We're never going to have. I talked to Alan Parsons about this once, actually.
Oh wow!
About the idea of distraction-free listening, and the idea of you and I are of an era where the art of listening to music was all you needed.
Yeah.
You would just sit there and listen to the music in your bedroom as a kid, right? And that's all. You'd just be on your bed, on your back with headphones.
Yep.
Putting away. That was a pastime. That was a hobby.
Yeah.
And now it's not possible for almost no kid listens to music that way.
No.
They're listening to music and they're doing 4 other things simultaneously.
Yeah.
They can't even watch TV anymore without looking at their phone in conjunction with that TV. I don't see that receding.
Yeah. Is that because music's free now, that you don't have to pay for music?
There's an element of that too, but I think it's even bigger than that. I think it's kind of what I was referring to, this idea that there's this endless spectrum of digital entertainment now. I think social media has had a profoundly adverse impact on people's attention spans.
Yeah.
Everyone has twitchy finger on their phone. Usually, with the example of the phone, the device you're using to access music is the device also spitting out 18,000 notifications to you at every second. You can hear it right there in the background as we talk right now, as it is with me. So I'd like to tell you, I think things are going to... I mean, there's a small subculture of kids that, as we know, have fueled the vinyl resurgence.
Yeah.
I stand in line with them at Record Store Day, and occasionally I get into a conversation with a 14-year-old kid who tells me about his, Riga turntable setup, what type of inner sleeve is better for the longevity of his LPs. And I'm like, how old are you? 14?
Well, that's pretty cool.
Are you really 14?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a few people like that will carry it forward, but I think the art of intent listening is dissipating rapidly. And to cap off the Alan Parsons thing, Alan said, I asked him, well, how do you do it now? Mr. Legendary producer, engineer, pop star. And he's like, I'm the same as everyone else. I can't listen to music, on a committed basis anymore. I'm just like everyone else.
Tell you a funny story.
So I'm going to say Alan Parsons is...
Yeah.
Can't do it.
One of the greatest. But I was at the Tower Records when Tower was still around, so maybe a decade ago, it might have been longer. And I'm online buying tickets for something, and some little punky kid stands up in front of me and says, "Who are you here to see? Jimi Hendrix?" It was like, little punky kid. But it was pretty funny. But man, it's Parsons. So he can't even listen to music anymore. That's pretty deep. I mean, his albums you had to sit there and listen to. You couldn't walk away from a Parsons album.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are so nuanced. The production so incredible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know he said that Wolfson was the guy who brought Alan Wolfson. Not Alan Wolfson.
Eric Wolfson.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah. He was the guy who brought all of the concepts to the scene, right?
Yeah, I mean the original Alan Parsons project. It was very much a collaboration between those two guys. Those are some incredible records.
They are. Yeah. But those you couldn't listen. You couldn't sit down for 10 minutes. You had to listen to that album from start to finish. The old Parsons albums.
That goes for so much great music. But not how it works anymore.
I know. Sad, right?
It's very sad.
It was interesting. I was a few weeks ago. I was watching the John Lurie HBO show. Did you see that?
I did not know John had an HBO show, but that doesn't. What's the show?
Painting with John.
I'm not aware of it, but I'm certainly aware of who he is.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'm telling you, it's 20 minutes. They were short episodes, and he's sitting there painting and just talking about things, talking about meeting Barry White, this thing and that thing. It was brilliant. It was just kind of what we're doing now, only he's painting while he's doing it.
Uh-huh.
And he's a great painter. He's incredible stuff he was painting. And his stories were really fun. Check him out. Check it out. They're very short episodes. There might have only been 6 or 7 of them. They're a very short series.
I haven't plugged into his world for a long time. Obviously, big Angel Lizards guy, and I'll look into that.
Yeah. And he was sick, so he was kind of mending, and it was great. It was really interesting stuff. So what do you think the future is going to look like, music-wise? What's going to happen? is
In what capacity?
just in the whole thing. When I was a kid, you had to save up your money. You had to get like $8, $9, whatever it was, together to buy an LP.
Yeah.
And $8, $9 back in the '60s is like $1 million today. I don't know what the exchange is, but you know what I'm saying. You kind of had to save up, and then you went to the store, and you bought the darn thing. You got it home, and you worshipped that thing for weeks and weeks and weeks. You knew every line. You knew every person that was on the album. You knew producers. You knew
the matrix, the outgoing matrix number or message in our group. Yeah.
You knew the engineer. You knew the label. It was kind of like 6 degrees from your album. You knew what was going on. Okay. A guy like let's see, who did I speak to? Fred Catero. You know Fred? Okay. You knew Fred was an engineer. You knew Fred worked with Santana. You knew he did Joplin stuff. Whatever. You knew the whole history of everybody. That's gone. That you don't get that on Spotify. You don't get that on YouTube. It's a whole lost art.
There is a saving grace in here, and that is Bandcamp.
Yeah,
and that is still a digital outlet. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but where musicians put stuff up in full resolution, they can lock the sequence to an album, and a lot of them include high-res PDFs that include all of the details people like you and I care about, all of these things you mentioned. So there is that exists out there as an alternate model, but it's a very small part of the mix. Yeah, I mean, you and I grew up in the era where music was an investment, and one of the important things about that was if you made that $8 or $9 investment as a kid. First of all, it was a big investment, unless you were rich, which I certainly wasn't. And so even if I didn't like the album when I got it, it was like, God damn it, I'm going to listen to this and find something in it for my $8 or $9 that I like.
Right.
Or I might realize 2 months later that was actually absolutely brilliant.
Right.
Thank God I bought that. What happens now? I mean, I was talking to Stephen Wilson, to name drop someone, and he's someone who grew up in the era we did too, and now he's got this sort of ascending career.
Incredible. But
his career now is based on streaming, and he knows that is where he has to be. And during one of these conversations we were having, we were talking about how pop music is now engineered. So what happens with streaming, the Spotify's, and Apple Music's of the world, is you have to lock the listener into listening to X percentage of the track, I believe, is within 5 to 10 seconds, or the musician doesn't get the credit or the minuscule payout or the chart tracking. And so now pop music is being engineered, so like the vocal has to come in within seconds, or the hook has to hit instantly, and so the music is actually being calibrated for the medium.
Wow.
Now, I mean, we can go back to, the early to mid part of the last century and look at 78 RPMs, and the 7-inch single also gated music, and certainly even like the earliest jazz music that came out, where like a 10-minute composition would have to be reduced to 2.5 minutes on one side of a 45. But still, it's not as bad as it is now, because it's all one of the problems is everything is algorithmic based now.
Yeah, I remember the old days placement of songs and LPs where you had to really there was some kind of a formula. Side A, the hit may be the first tune on the first side. And then there was placement. The last song had to be interesting enough for somebody to flip it, that kind of thing. To flip the LP. There was a whole there was a whole formula that.
And then just the restrictions of vinyl. The best sounding part of the album to groove density was at the front end of the LP, and you started to lose detail as you got towards the end. I mean, in terms of where music is going, though, I think we're always going to have the super creative people that make music in a completely uncompromising way and don't care about all the algorithms and the models or whatever. they just make music for music's sake, and I think a lot of that ends up on places like Bandcamp. And then you're going to have people that are playing the horrific machine learning, artificial intelligence modeled content designed to specifically, check the boxes of the systems through which it, emanates from. And I have no interest in that part. I could not care less. I pay attention to it all, but I really hate it.
So I ask everybody who kind of loves music. I go back to this. The Beatles. Were you a Beatle fan?
I think anyone who's a true music aficionado is a Beatles fan. I'm very suspicious of anyone who claims to be a fan of music that says they don't like the Beatles.
Good.
I'm like,
so let me ask you a question. Every one of their albums was pretty much a masterpiece in one way or another. What do you think their most influential album was?
I think Revolver is the masterpiece.
Me too. That's what Revolver's mine.
There's a lot of masterpieces in the Beatles catalog. Revolver is the one that I still listen to, and you can marvel at virtually. I mentioned Alan Parsons earlier. I mean, he sprinkled his fairy dust in some of those later recordings. Revolver was like a
breakthrough,
chronicled to death. But I mean, there's so much going on. There's so much pushing the envelope forward on that record.
I think Revolver gave them and every band that came after them the license where it was okay to experiment.
Yeah.
The rules were broken. That's the album that broke the rules. Tomorrow Never Knows, She Said. There was so much going
People
on
still covering that stuff till this day. Yeah, I mean, it's
the Black Pumas, right? Just covered Eleanor Rigby. Do you know the Black Pumas?
I mean, I'm so glad McCartney's still out there doing his thing and collaborating with modern artists.
Yeah.
Maybe too collaborative with modern artists, but but I'm really glad that he and Ringo are still doing their things.
Yeah. But I Revolver too. How about Beatles solo work? Do you have a?
It's probably going to be sacrilege to say, but I'm not supposed to say this. I'm more on the McCartney than the Lennon side of the solo work, but I love some of the John stuff too. I love some of the Wing stuff.
It's funny. Mine is All Things Must Pass. I think it's the best Beatles solo album.
Sorry, and then the George stuff. And then George's influence on integrating world music into the world of pop and rock cannot be understated. So George's influence is, in a way, George may be, at the end of the day, the most influential Beatle of all, actually, quietly.
Yep.
If you think about it deeply, I did not mean to not mention him earlier.
I think All Things Must Pass. I think he was sitting on a gold mine of music that obviously didn't have, Lennon and McCartney gave him one, two cuts on an album. And he had this kind of arsenal that he was sitting on of incredible music. And All Things Must Pass, boom, it all came out.
Yeah.
Look what came from that band, the Dominoes. The Stones took musicians from there. I spoke to Bobby Whitlock, and he told me that Jagger used to hang out at the sessions, and he wrote a lot of Exile sitting, there. He would say to Bobby, "Can you play me a gospel thing?" And it turned into Shine a Light. That kind of, so much happened at those sessions that it was, just incredible. But anyway, that's mine. But I think Revolver 2 is the biggest. I
was just sort of random brain fart. I'm just realizing that even Monty Python wouldn't have moved forward without George Harrison.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's influence is on culture. It's incredible.
I'm friendly with John Altman. Do you know John? And John's the guy who did all those Monty Python and Ruddles. He arranged all the Ruddle stuff.
Yeah.
And that all came from, a lot of, Harrison was hanging out at the Ruddle sessions. He was there when they were recording them. So, great musician. And I was lucky enough to see the Bangladesh shows.
And you were actually there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So incredible stuff. In fact, I always tell people that the best part of it, not the best part, but the thing I remember about that show was the ending. They're doing Bangladesh. That was the last piece. And that's where the film cuts, right at the end of that. But at the show, Harrison comes out and he puts his he had the white Stratocaster. He puts the white Stratocaster down and walks off the stage, and then Ringo follows him, and Clapton and Billy Preston, all the big guys left, Russell, and the band kept playing Bangladesh, and they're off the stage already, and they don't go into that in the movies. But I thought that was the greatest finale I ever saw. It was incredible, just very humble, and you knew it was over. I think, I don't know, we did a lot today. I have to thank you. So what are you doing? You writing any new books? What?
No new books. I had a fairly bruising experience with the first book. I might be working on an autobiography for someone soon. Yeah. I probably shouldn't even mention it because it's not inked yet. Books have been very frustrating dealing with publishers and all of that. So I'm still fully focused on the interview site. That Leo Kottke is coming up.
How many followers do you have?
Social media?
On the interviews, do you have any people actually click
the actual website traffic? Yeah. It's completely variable based on whatever the hot interview is at the time. So it's funny. I mean, most people don't understand why I would have even done it, but I interviewed William Shatner once, who is actually a very interesting musician, believe it or not. And so that thing had untold millions of people that read that one.
His album, you hear his albums are crazy. He had Edgar Froese was on one.
Those are the latter day ones. Those were kind of cobbled together by record labels related to them. The earlier Shatner albums are the fascinating ones.
Lucy in the Sky, right?
I think that's a classic, personally. But I realize people have varying opinions on that. But I think an interview like a William Shatner will get millions of readers.
Right.
And it goes down to some people are so unknown on the site that no matter what I do, there's one interview on the site that maybe has like 80 people that have read it. So it's so variable. Right. I mean, in general, a few 100,000 people visit it every month.
Well, it's very nice. Cool. Well, you deserve millions of followers. You really do, because you're the you're ground zero when it comes to this stuff.
Well, I appreciate that you read it and that you have an interest in it, and hopefully I can keep doing this for a while longer.
Yeah, and I'd love to pick your brain offline one day. Just
sure.
I appreciate the time you spent. And can we do this again?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. I'm going to set up another. We'll talk offline. And I appreciate everything you did for me today. Just have a great Easter if you follow all that fun stuff. And, just stay well, stay healthy, and we'll speak soon.
Great. Stay safe. Hopefully we're getting out of this thing in the coming months.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, you still have stuff out there? Yeah. Do you? Yeah. Trying to do one little bag at a time. Somewhere else.
Not Your Mother's Radio is listener funded. If you wish to contribute, our PayPal info is notyourmothersradio@gmail.com. That's notyourmothersradio@gmail.com. We would like to thank you in advance for any contributions. Elliot definitely is not your mother.